people, Captain America Civil War is just coming around the corner, and as I promised, I said that I was going to give you my spoiler review of Ant-Man when we get close to that date, so now here we go. So let's talk some Ant-Man spoilers, and again, this is a spoiler warning. If you haven't seen Ant-Man by now, go watch Ant-Man, but the movie's been out for almost a year now, so if you haven't seen it by now, then you're obviously not going to watch it, so otherwise, you have been warned. Now, one of the things I said in my spoiler-free review of this movie is that the movie doesn't suffer because it doesn't have Edgar Wright in. And while giving the movie a couple of views now, I'd say this movie does have a couple of elements of Edgar Wright in it. It definitely has some Edgar Wright-isms in the movie. But I'll get to that later. But I like how the movie starts. It's this little flashback of young Hank Pym. He's working with S.H.I.E.L.D. when S.H.I.E.L.D. was, coming off the ground. And we see a young Peggy Carter with all the CGI makeup to make her look good, And then we have John Slattery playing old Howard Stark, and then we get that one soldier guy that's with S.H.I.E.L.D., but he's actually Hydra. S.H.I.E.L.D., they're trying to get the Pym particles from Hank Pym, and Pym's not letting them have it. And it's obviously because Hydra is within S.H.I.E.L.D., so it's really Hydra that's trying to get a hold of the Pym particles. And obviously, the stuff that happened in Hank Pym's past, not giving the Pym particles to S.H.I.E.L.D. is why he's leaving. But nonetheless, Hank Pym, he still has a successful company. His daughter is one of the chairmen at the company, but her and his protege, Darren Cross, they threw him out of the company. And now Darren Cross, he figured out the Ant-Man technology, and now he's making the yellow jacket. And Hank Pym, he hears about this, he sees this, and because his daughter Hope, who has now told him about this, they are aware of this. So now they're trying to get the yellow jacket away from Darren Cross. And so who do they get? They get Scott Lang, played by Paul Rudd. And Paul Rudd, I like the history behind Paul Rudd. He's a criminal, but he's a criminal with good intentions. He pretty much stole some stuff from this company called Vesta Corp, and now he's in jail, and now he's left that life behind, and now he wants to do right by his daughter, but he's down it's like he's working at Baskin Robbins, and now he's really in a pinnacle because he's not paying child support, and he has to, and that one Bobby Conovan guy that's playing a cop, he's really on his ass about it, and now he's trying to do right, so now Scott Lang, he is at his lowest low. He has to rob his house, which his buddy, played by Michael Pena, he tells him about. He goes in, and it's really Hank Pym's house. And I just like seeing how Scott Lang works as like a guy that breaks into houses. Now real quick, Louis, played by Michael Pena. Now he's funny in this movie, and one of the things I liked about this movie, it was more so comedic. Now I will say it did kind of oversaturate a little bit because, again, like I said, this movie is kind of a change of pace from what we got in Age of Ultron. So it was just kind of weird, and it kind of didn't mesh well, but it still worked to some degree though. But Michael Pena, he definitely does serve as a comic relief in this movie, and as well as T.I. in this movie. But after giving this movie a couple more viewings, I'd say T.I., it was really just T.I. playing himself. And that's one of the things I hate about rappers trying to be actors, is like, they're just playing themselves. And like, put themselves in a role where they're not acting like themselves, Expand yourself. Because it's like, just saying, you're not trying to get awards or anything, all because you're playing your fucking self, But in any case, again, I like the comedy in this movie. And so Hank Pym, he finally breaks the vote, and he sees the Ant-Man suit, which he mistakes for a motorcycle suit. And so when he gets home, he tries to suit on, and then he shrinks for the first time. I tell you, I love that first time when he shrinks down, and it's just cool seeing him trying to get used to it, and I just love the special effects in this movie. And I remember when I saw this in theaters, like, that would actually look good in 3D, and I regret not seeing it in 3D. Just seeing an ant-sized human in the shower, water coming down, and he's trying to avoid not to get stepped on by anybody, and then he starts hearing Hank Pym, and then he tells him he can keep the suit, and then Scott Lang's like, forget that, and then he tries to return it, but then the cops fired him. The long story short, Hank Pym, he breaks him out of prison, and now he's pretty much a fugitive again because Bobby Conovan is looking for him now again. But he hides out at Hank Pym's house, and I just like that whole middle section where Hank Pym, he's telling him about the Ant-Man suit and the history behind him, and he told him about Darren Cross and how he was a protege to him, but then Darren Cross became aggressively jealous, and then he wanted to know everything about the Ant-Man suit, but then he wasn't having it. And he discovered that Darren Cross, he's trying to replicate the suit and turn it into the yellow jacket. And this movie is very smart too, because it's been asking pretty much some questions that we've been asking since the beginning of Phase 2. But for number one, why can't Hank Pym just do this himself? And, well, the reason why is because the technology of the suit has took a toll on him that he just can't handle it anymore. And so he asked Scott Lang to do it. And Scott Lang even asked, I think, our first thing we should do is call it the Avengers, and I like that he even backed up that, which they haven't done in the other movies, to which Hank Pym, he answered with, Scott, I spent years trying to keep this technology out of the hands of the Stark. I'm certainly not about to put it in the hands of another one. And besides, I'm pretty sure they're all preoccupied dealing with floating cities. See what? Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, again, I like this whole segment in which he's learning how to use the Ant-Man suit, and he's bonding with the other ants, and even names one of them Anthony, and he's trying to use the ants to put the sugar cube in his coffee. But then around this period is when Hope, she's becoming very hostile towards the both of them, because she's wondering why Hank won't let her do it. And one of the things I like about this movie is the relationships and the motivations. Like Scott, he's doing this for his daughter, and Hank and Hope, they essentially mirror Scott and his daughter, because Hank, he doesn't want his daughter to do this because it's very dangerous. Because essentially he doesn't want the same thing to happen to his wife Janet to happen to Hope. And we learned that Hank and Janet, known back then as the Wasp, disappeared into the subatomic core program while disabling the Soviet nuclear missile. And he even tells Scott that he could suffer this same too. That if he shrinks small enough, he could be stuck in that realm as well. Which is also hinting at the possibilities that are in the Doctor Strange movie that we're about to get. So, well, back to Ant-Man though. So Hank tells Hope about what happened to her mother, and they ultimately reconnect again after that. And I like how it just ended with Scott being all like, "This is great bonding. This is great. I ruined it, didn't I? I'll just leave." But again, I just like that whole mirroring aspect of it. And Scott even tells Hope, "Look, I'm expendable. The only reason he chose me is because he would rather lose this battle than to lose you." And I just like, that's good dialogue right there. I just like that little aspect right there. And so after this, all three of them, they pretty much rekindle, and they all pretty much advance. And that later on, Scott has to get something from this base, which turns out to be the Avengers base. And then we even get some screen time with Falcon, who, quite frankly, didn't get enough screen time in Avengers Age of Ultron, but they made up for it in Ant-Man. And I just like when the two of them were fighting for a second. Scott manages to get what he needs, and then said Ant-Man, he's really putting the throw down on Falcon. To the point where at the end, Falcon's like, "It's really important that nobody tells Cap about this." So meanwhile, they have to open their timeline when Darren Cross, he's about to pretty much do a presentation of the Yellow Jacket, so now they gotta really get going. So Scott recruits Louise and T.I.'s character. So now they're in on the plane and they're gonna help. And real quick, I just like this one little scene where, Scott, he escapes one night in his Ant-Man suit and he's in his daughter's room. And then it's just like little character motivations. And, he kisses his daughter on the forehead and he's like, "Don't worry. Everything will be alright." It's just like actions speak louder than words. And I just like those little things right there. It gives more levity to his character. So now we're at the big heist, which is the climax of the movie, and it's a point of the movie. And that's one of the things I loved about this movie, is that it was a heist film, and I just love that Marvel movies are doing this. Like, we got pretty much a big sci-fi spectacle with Guardians of the Galaxy, a spy espionage film with Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and now we have a heist film with Ant-Man. And again, just like I said at the beginning of the movie, that one guy that's part of SHIELD, but he's really with Hydra. He's one of the guys at the Yellow Jacket presentation, and pretty much Darren Cross, he's trying to sell this to Hydra. Pretty much connecting everything together. But Darren Cross, he finds out about Scott Lang being the Ant-Man, and then everything just turns to chaos. But I do like the acts of heroism, everyone is helping out. Like Louise, he's playing that security guard, and then T.I., he notices that Bobby Connor, they come in, and so T.I., he pretty much sacrifices himself to make a distraction, and then they're pretty much helping. Everyone is chiming in on this, Hank Pym, he gets shot, but he's fine, and then, so at this point, it's pretty much just Ant-Man Ant-Man against the Yellow Jacket. And I just like how it just goes from point A to point B, and how they're just shrinking from big to small, and how they're just turning everything small, and then they finally end up in Scott Lang's daughter. I like the whole Thomas the Train segment. That one segment we saw in the trailer where Yellow Jacket's like right over down the and then the one thing that they didn't put in the trailer is that Thomas the Train, it gets bigger, and then it puts a hole in the house. And that's what I meant in my original review, they actually expand upon that. So now the Yellow Jacket, he has his daughter held hostage, and so now Scott Lang, he has no choice but to pretty much shrink between the molecules in order to pretty much get rid of the Yellow Jacket. And he does. The Yellow Jacket, he pretty much just disappears, and then Scott, he shrinks between the molecules and so small that he goes into the quantum realm. And at this point, it just becomes a little trippy side effects. Then he starts hearing his daughter, and then eventually he figures it out. He puts that little thing that makes everything bigger, he puts it in his thing, and then he shrinks back to normal size. And now everything's all good. Scott Lang, he's no longer a fugitive. Darren Cross, he's defeated. The company is back in good hands now. Scott Lang, he tells Hank Pym about the quantum realm, and now he was able to get out, and then and you can even tell that this even puts an idea in Hank Pym's head that, wait, could she still be alive? And then I like how they play on the cliches, like, you would think that Scott Lang and Hope, they hook up, and then they're behind there, and then Scott, he plays off like, really, Janet? Could be kissing up on everyone. And then Hank's like, you're an ass. And so now Scott, he's reacquainted with his family again, and then they're gonna do everything right by his daughter. And then I like how the movie ends with pretty much a cliffhanger of Louise. He's pretty much telling them that the Falcon, he's looking for him through these series of people, like through a Stanley cameo, a YouTube cameo, and now Falcon, and now this pretty much could lead into Civil War. And now for the two end credit scenes, to which teases the next Ant-Man movie. Hank Pym, he didn't want to start a Hulk become the Wasp, but then he pretty much says he's pretty much okay with it now. He's all like, I think we were just making this suit for her, but now I realized we were making it for you. And then he opens it, we see the Wasp suit, and then she's like, it's about damn time. Teasing the next movie, which is Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is the next Ant-Man movie that was announced, and I'm very excited for that. And then the next one is pretty much a scene for Captain America Civil War, and they finally captured the Winter Soldier, and that they need help from Ant-Man now. Didn't really say much about the negatives, but I think one of my biggest negatives was pretty much just the villain. It was like, even though I liked Yellow Jacket as a villain, there wasn't really much to him. Like, to me, he was more of a one-dimensional villain, and we didn't really see much of his motivation. What, all because he felt neglected? Like, come on, man. I gave Ant-Man an A- for full price, and I stand by that rating, but with my new rating system, I'd say I give Ant-Man 4 stars for worth money. Like, this movie, they made this movie the best way they could, and all the actors and actresses in the movie played their part. Paul Walker was good, Michael Douglas, he was great in this film. Evangeline Lilly was good in this movie. Can't wait to see what they do with her and the Wasp. I can't wait to see what they do with Ant-Man and Hank Pym in the next movie. I can't wait to see how they utilize them in Captain America Civil War, and let alone the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe going forward. This movie had the best way of utilizing their Avengers references without making it feel forced. The special effects in this movie was good. If this movie is still in theaters, I'd say it's worth seeing in 3D. Marvel continues their streak with taking characters that the general public doesn't really know, but they know how to pretty much market them and make them work. So that's it for my spoiler review of Ant-Man. What did you think of this movie? What do you think of this movie a year later? You like it? You love it? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comment section below. And now, I'm ready for Captain America Civil War. That's it for the day. If you like what you see, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. If you want to see more, go ahead and check out my channel. The link is in the description below. And be sure to check me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Movie Pilot, and Periscope. Peace.